the South African National Defence Force has finally returned irregularly procured COVID-19 drug, which supposedly was to fight COVID-19. We're talking about the interferon drug, which, according to reports, cost South Africa over 220 million rand to procure from Cuba. Now, it has been 2 months since it was ordered by the South African Health Regulatory Authority to be returned. Now, the drug was meant to be used as a booster for soldiers, and came to light that during a briefing before the Parliament Portfolio Committee, this drug had been in the country and brought in illegally. Joining me now to talk about this is the Chair of Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Defence, Cyril Xaba. Mr. Xaba, thank you very much for your time, and a very important conversation to have indeed. 3 invoices that were issued for payment by the state-owned Cuban company, Techno Import. These 3 invoices, Mr. Xaba, were all of them paid by the South African military?
No, only the first one, to the tune of 35 million rand, has been honored. The other 2 were not honored because the CFO declined honoring the 2 invoices and citing procurement irregularities of the drug.
All right, so 1 invoice was paid to the tune of 33 million, as you say. The Auditor General told Parliament sometime last year that a price tag of 120 million rand had been paid thus far. Where does that money fit into the 33 million you talk about?
Well, look, I'm not aware of the figure you are citing, Tolly. I may have to check with the Auditor General because the last information we had was that only about 35, let's say between 33 and 35 million rand has been paid so far, because we're using denominated price in this case. So the figures keep fluctuating depending on the performance of the rand in the market.
Yeah.
Yes, the total was said to be 260 million rand, but obviously we don't know when that finally comes to payment, how much it will be by then. So, like you said in your opening, Tolly, that the SNDF has repatriated the drug back to Cuba, and what is left now for all of us is to account the cost and identify people who were responsible in this bungling up.
Yeah, okay. We'll get to the people who ought to be held accountable here. Now that this drug has been returned to Cuba, by the way, let's get it on the record. How confident are you that indeed it has been returned to Cuba? Because for all we know, it could still be stored somewhere, given that even the storage place was not an appropriate place to store this drug.
Remember that the drug was in the country unlawfully, and that the only recourse SAPRA had then was to confiscate it and destroy it. But they allowed a discussion between themselves and the SNDF in the hope that at some point the drug would be used. But unfortunately, we are now a year or 2 later, and nothing has come out of it. So then the SNDF was forced to repatriate the drug back to Cuba. But let me say this, that the SAPRA, the Health Product Regulatory Authority, is looking into the matter. They've since called for the documents as proof that the drug has been repatriated back to the country, to Cuba. So we're waiting for SAPRA to come back to us after they've reviewed the papers from the SNDF.
What about taxpayers' money, Mr. Xaba? Is that going to be refunded to us by the Cubans?
Well, look, you'll recall that the drug had almost reached the expiry date. The first date, I think, is in March, and the second date is in April. At some point, the Cuban authority, or rather the entity that the SNDF was dealing with, did, well, let me say the embassy, did write to DECO and said, look, we understand that there are issues surrounding the importation of this drug, and please return it to us, and we will replace it as soon as the matter has been resolved. That was last year, and if the SNDF or the minister had taken Cuba up on that one, at least the damage would be minimized or reduced. So as it stands now, we don't know whether Cuba will still demand full payment, seeing that, like I said, the expiry date is just around the corner. February is March, April, when they long asked us to return the drug back to them.
Mr. Xaba, let's get it clear to the viewers. Has this drug expired? And if it has expired, what's the point of returning it to Cuba? If it has not expired, when exactly is it going to expire?
Only is expiring in the first batch is expiring there's a batch that's expiring in March and another in April this year. As to whether Cuba will be able to use all of it within this period of about 2 months to avoid facing this expiration, I'm not too sure. And whether Cuba, on the basis of their own assessment, they will ask us to pay whatever was remaining, I'm not too sure. As I said in the beginning, Xoli, that what remains now is to count the cost and then identify those officials who were responsible for bringing this drug into the country unlawfully, and two, and without following the procurement, the demand management and acquisition processes.
All right. Mr. Xaba, I'm fast running out of time, so I'm going to have to rush you over the next 2 questions. When the Cubans say that they will replace the drug, replace it with what exactly? Because I suspect what South Africans want is for monies to be refunded, because we have not used the drug, and it's only expiring in February, April, as you say.
Well, the Cuban authority believed that this intervention was going to go a long way in assisting in the fight against COVID-19, and that in the event all of these violations have been sorted out and the country is ready to receive them, they will then replace them with the same number of vials that would have been returned back to them.
I'm still not clear here, Mr. Xaba, because in South Africa, the only medicines that we are fighting COVID-19 with, it is the vaccines, and those vaccines, we all know which companies are offering, or the country, which vaccines have been approved for use in South Africa. So if Cubans are going to replace a drug to fight COVID-19, this is very confusing, because I'm not sure if Cuba is a manufacturer of COVID-19 vaccines. Are they?
Well, Xoli, I think your question should be saying that in view of the fact that the country has found a vaccine to deal with this pandemic, do we still really need any other thing, as it were? I would say, to be honest, facing the people of South Africa, that I don't think, in the first place, there is no information about its safety and its effectiveness, so I can't comment on it. Two, and I'm not quite certain, even if it was effective, whether this drug would be competent to be used together with the vaccine that is being rolled out by the country. So I think, for me, it's safest for the country to return the drug back to Cuba and never have to ask it back again.
Mr. Xaba, you know, South Africans, they want clear answers, particularly when we are going to be talking to someone who is supposed to have their best interests at heart. At the moment, I don't think South Africans are clear as to whether South Africa is fighting for monies to be returned or they are looking for replacements.
No.
We know South Africa's relationship with Cuba. We know that history. And therefore, you as a member of the ANC, but you serve in your capacity right now as chair of the Portfolio Committee on Defense, you are supposed to discharge your work and discard the fact that you come from the ANC. And so where we are going with this is what I sense to be leniency on your part as to whether Cuba is going to be forced to repay monies, because I'm not sure if they are a country that produces vaccines. So money is what is required.
No, Tolly, don't what you call panic. The committee will call all the officials responsible to our account, and as it were, as I explained it, only just about 2 days ago we learned about the fact that the drug had been returned back to Cuba. So, and then said to you, all what it remains now is to count the cost. And once we know exactly how much we owe to Cuba, if there's anything, we'll then tell the public, and also what the Portfolio Committee is going to do about it. I should also add, Tolly, that it is the Portfolio Committee that, after receiving the report of the Auditor General, that asked the Minister to conduct an inquiry into this. That was in February last year, and the Minister responded. Hence, she appointed a ministerial task team, and the report of the ministerial task team, and also the response from the AG and SAPRA, all of that we are waiting to deal with it. What made us not to get into the full discussion was the fact that the minister was not available.
Yeah.
As soon as he returns back to work, we'll then revisit the issue. The people of South Africa must be comforted in the fact that the Portfolio Committee is really looking into these matters, and we're leaving no stone unturned.
Okay, you're leaving no stone unturned. I'm completely out of time. In less than a minute, sir, please. The officials who were involved in violating the supply chain management processes in bringing this drug to South Africa, how many are they, and what consequences have followed?
Well, look, I cannot get into that at the moment, Koli, because the ministerial task team report is yet to be released to the public, and it will name the officials that were found to have not complied with the regulatory policies of our government. And it is those officials that we will call to account. So far, we only know the head of SAMS, the South African Military Health Services. The chief is the ex-chief at the moment because he is retired, who, when he was in Cuba in February, he got to know about the presence of this drug, the existence of this drug, and came back and reported it back to the Command Council of the Defense Force that felt in love with it. But what made the whole thing worse is not the drug, but the processes that were followed in bringing the drug into our country. The efficacy and the effectiveness of the drug was yet to be looked into, but unfortunately, the clinical trials ran out of time. Hence, the drug had to be returned back to Cuba.
Cyril Xaba is the chairperson of the Defense Portfolio Committee. Thank you very much for your time.